Well, you also got to see Joan Jett.
Joan Jett of the Blackhearts. What other band was she in? The Runaways?
The Runaways. I was going to say of Runaway fame.
Yeah, and then Poison, the great Bret Michaels.
They were there too?
Yeah, so it was Joan Jett. Poison came up after Joan Jett. And Def Leppard, oh my God. Def Leppard was fantastic. I thought they blew me away.
Hard of Hearing Panther. I like it.
Yeah. Blew me away. And then Motley Crue was also, I mean, how do you not love Motley Crue?
No, it's why I think and that one scene at the very end of Hot Tub Time Machine, spoilers.
I've actually never seen that movie, but.
Oh, it's so time travel's involved. I mean, they get back to the future after they go back into the past to change some stuff. They get there, and one of the members of the group is like, Motley Lou? What the fuck did you do?
What's Motley Lou?
A member of their group named Lou decided he was going to write all the Motley Crue songs because he remembered them. So he went and wrote them. He made a band called Motley Lou.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you know that over $5 trillion exchanges hands on a daily basis? That's an average of over $220 billion an hour. Now, how does this much money move every single day, and why does it move the way it does? Here on Drunkenomics, two bartenders who also happen to be students at the University of Nebraska Graduate School of Business are going to sit down and drink to the global economy and try and translate it into English. So sit back, relax, pour yourself a stiff one, and have a drink with us to the comedy that is the global economy.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Drunkenomics, the drinking podcast with an economics problem. More than one economics problem at this point.
Many.
I mean,
it's a global.
It's a series of global. It's really a litany, a supply chain of issues.
I know. Wow, nice. Good choice of words, man.
You know, if you enjoyed last week because it was busy and really going because there was so much to get through and not enough time to do it. Buckle up because this is round two.
Yeah, this is round two.
Surprise, surprise! Things did not get better.
Yeah, it did. And for you, the VIX is still above 18, even though it's still underneath 25. But like the bet was only for 1 week, so you're still the more gracious host, whatever. Or you're back to being the more gracious host, whatever.
And then back in form as the more gracious host, I am James Goldwater. In less gracious form, of course, that makes you...
That makes me Aaron Wong. Yeah, so happy to be here right now in my less gracious form. Once again, for the 100th time, let's say, this year.
I don't know if we're at 100 yet, but we've definitely passed 20. We've definitely passed 25.
Yes, okay, we're definitely past 25, yes. So, and speaking of which, we passed 25 followers on our social media. Actually, we're well past that, but I just like to talk down to myself or about myself all the time. But if you want to be among our followers on social media, you can find us there at Drunkenomical, DRUNKENOMICAL.
And that's I'm good at that in the metaverse on Facebook and Instagram. That is Twitter. And then, of course,
from there,
you can find the invite into the Discord where, if I'm not mistaken, and actually a very fun conversation happened today of discussions of about retail inventories, which, I don't know, that was just
speaking of, this economics problem that we have, I would probably exchange it for a drinking problem. I don't know, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't.
There's no problem drinking.
Yeah, I have no problem drinking either. But, dude, a lot of stuff happening. Obviously, retail sentiment has been good. I don't really want to talk too much about retail.
And we can always we're gonna push retail off a little bit on
because
in order to focus on some slightly more pressing issues.
Yeah, because earnings. The weird thing about this earnings cycle, and I'll just do this real quick, is like it's actually they're coming in way stronger than last earnings cycle. Last earnings cycle was like if you didn't smash, then you got smashed.
Yeah, so, and it's kind of weird because just to press one that I've seen. And it kind of feeds into some other stuff. I have looked at Tesla's earnings.
Oh, the Netflix one got me, but if there's Tesla for you.
Yeah, Tesla. Yeah. Well, Tesla's the one that was interesting to me because of everything it says, which is they smashed their EPS, their earnings per share.
But they always give like really low guidance. I don't get it.
Yeah, whatever, they did. They scored 227 versus 181 expected.
Wow,
right?
That's actually really good. I killed it.
But revenue was under expectations by about 200 million.
So where do they get where do they make up for the extra 40 cents in EPS or 50 cents or whatever?
Well, that's a great question. They probably just moved shares out of the outstanding position.
I think I know what happened because they did what every big company has done in the last 3 months. They cut a lot of
back.
Well, I don't know if there was buybacks, but like it wouldn't behoove them to do buybacks. But at the same time, they also laid off a bunch of people. maybe that's where they made up for the profit, right? So
yeah, they certainly and their automotive gross margin came in at 27.9, down from 32.9 last quarter.
That's so weird.
And down from 28.4 last year. So there certainly looks like there's some issues with its automotive margins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, today we're recording on the day in which they released their earnings report, and the stock shot up initially in the after hours, but I think it's calmed down a little bit since. It's still up pretty drastically in the after hours.
Yeah,
but
it will be. And I don't see I don't see necessarily a reason for it to be changing initially. I mean, I imagine it'll continue to go up on that good news on EPS.
The thing that shocked me was just Netflix, right? They lost 1 million subscribers, and the stock still shot up. But that's because what was priced in initially was a loss of 2 million subscribers. So I think that's pretty ironic that the stock shot up after that kind of announcement. They still lost 1 million subscribers. And if you think about 1 million subscribers times, let's honestly, it's more like 970,000 subscribers. But like, if you take that times however much you pay a month, like that's a lot of revenue.
12.
Yeah, $12 a month. That's a lot of revenue that they're missing out on.
It's 12 million.
Yeah, but apparently it was priced in. So yeah, but that's my earnings spiel, because a lot of pressing issues, starting with, I guess, should we pick up right where we left off last week with the whole European Dutch farmers?
Yeah, we might as well. I mean,
that whole deal?
Europe's having kind of the beginning of the worst fears for European economies are beginning to be recognized, or
that reality is becoming more and more likely.
Yeah, the entire premise of the gas crisis, of the natural gas crisis out of Russia and into Europe it's probably going to happen. Yeah. So there was a plan to shut down one of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline that already exists, right? So Nord Stream 2, the Germans shut down. Yeah. Nord Stream 1, which is the main one that goes into Germany, it already exists. It's shut down for maintenance, so it's been closed down for maintenance. The Russians are now saying, because of import bans and export bans and other issues, it's not going to reopen because we're not going to have the parts to do it. Whereas the Germans are going, that's absolutely not the case. The turbine that's being worked on in Canada has been worked on. The Canadians have said, yeah, we've worked on it. We've sent it back to Germany. Yeah. That's not happening. But the Russians, it looks like they're gonna play the game, and they're gonna cut off or deliberately allow to be restricted for longer than likely the natural gas supply into Russia. They've already throttled it down since the start of sanctions in the conflict. So there's really no way now for the German economy to be insulated, therefore the rest of Europe to be insulated from this lack of fuel.
Yeah, because they've been super dependent on Russia for nat gas. And then on top of that, to make things worse, nat gas inventories, nat gas reserves, they keep going down. Every week EIA data comes out and it's like, okay, nat gas reserves suck. What the EU has done to kind of mitigate this in the smallest way possible is they signed a new deal with Azerbaijan, which I don't really know that much about Azerbaijan's economy and how much nat gas they can produce.
Well, the other thing is Russia has looked to find other customers for natural gas.
I don't think they'll have a tough time doing that, to be honest with you.
No, they signed a pretty solid agreement with China because China needs the fuel after all. Beijing has shot itself in the foot over Australian coal last year. Yeah. So now we'll see.
The weird thing is they did that and they don't really care. They're just like, yeah, well, I mean, as someone that works in the government that puts this law into place, it doesn't affect me.
Yeah, it's very much if you've seen that meme of the guy riding the bike and then shoving a stick into the front wheel and then going, why would something do this? It's like who could have foreseen? And it's like, well, everybody. Yeah. But right now I mean, looking at the amount of gas right now, so as of today, 20th of July, natural gas shipments into Europe are less than a third of this time last year, right? So
wow, dude, that's insane.
So 67% of the natural gas flowing into Europe isn't.
Yeah.
So this is creating problems.
And not to mention, this is like one of the hottest summers Europe has ever seen. I know it was.
Absolutely.
I know, like this week at some point, the hottest temperature ever recorded in London was recorded.
102 degrees.
Yeah, or whatever. I didn't even know the UK could reach triple digits.
I'll be honest, whatever. I don't think they did either.
Yeah. So,
there's something to be said for that now. Wealthier countries are going to be less affected because obviously they can afford to buy gas at a more expensive rate.
Yeah, everyone's more expensive.
But when you're down to a third, a quarter of the supply, you have to start making decisions on what is going to be running. So is it going to be that we're going to be running the air conditioners in houses, or is it
the stove,
giving homes and stoves, or is it going to be factories and offices and restaurants? Yeah. Because then suddenly when the factories are closed, well, how are these going to earn money? So you end up with this whole, if you stop the economy, if you stop one part of the economy, it does trickle into everything else.
Yeah.
It doesn't even trickle, it actually floods in the case if you shut something in one section down. Well, it really does cascade into everything.
And on top of that, there's a lot of wildfire. Apparently there's wildfires all over Europe spreading. I don't know that much about it.
Probably has something to do with the fact that it's exceptionally hot.
Yeah.
Which makes it exceptionally dry. Which
I don't think that necessarily helps. Yeah. And of course, dry means it burns easier or catches on fire easier.
Yeah. So in Greece, Spain, and Italy. So southern, warmer climates, drier climates, they're having problems.
Yeah. And then on top of that, the farmers' protests from last week that we talked about. And speaking of which, sorry about the poor audio last week. I got it worked out this week, I think. But farmers from other countries have joined in and decided to protest with the Dutch farmers. So I think last I saw, I think we mentioned Poland last week.
Poland jumped on board, and the Germans as well.
Yeah, last week we mentioned both those countries. And then this week, or I guess over the weekend, Spain has jumped on, Spanish farmers have jumped on, and I think Italian, was that the other one? Italian farmers have jumped on?
I mean, they obviously
it's Italian, that's what it is. So that's, all that, I don't know. I don't know if necessarily 50 basis points will fix this. We have a less than credible central bank over there. In case you're wondering about the ECB's credibility, which is the European Central Bank.
We find out tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the big thing for this coming week is, the ECB's decision to raise interest rates. What's it going to be? 25 basis points, 50 basis points, 100?
If I have to be on record, I'm more than happy to do this.
Yes.
I think it'll be 50.
If I had a bet, it'd be 52.
It's distinctly possible that may only be 25 just because they're like, we haven't done this in 12 years. How do we do it again?
Right, exactly.
But I think 50. It's kind of
got to be 50. And everybody thinks that the Fed here in the United States has lost credibility, assuming that they had credibility to begin with. But look over there. I mean, their Fed credibility is atrocious. It's worse than ours, I think. They have rampant inflation. The euro dollar was below 1 for a while. I don't know if it still is, but it went when it went to parity, everybody was freaking out.
When it went to parity, everyone was freaking out. Yeah, no.
Talk about a crazy currency pair,
man. The euro is $1.02.
Yeah, so
it's just barely.
Well, what I'm saying is like historically, it was like 1.5 to 1.
Yeah, I'm used to. For me, it was always kind of that 125, 150. Yeah. The euro will buy you 1.25, 1.5.
Yeah,
but not lately. It's just
It's been the fact that the dollar was more than the euro, like that, you can get $100 can get you 100 euros. That was crazy because usually $100 gets you like 75 euros or 80 euros.
Yeah, no, it's certainly it speaks to a very severe weakness in their monetary policy, and
so they have to.
But to be fair, again, like they do not have in Europe. It's almost like it's 2020 all over again, the beginning of 2020 all over again. I mean, I remember we were sitting there talking.
Yeah.
You and I were sitting there at Tavern on the Square in the Igloo discussing why we thought, or why I thought at least, that the Fed Reserve's decision to go to 0% interest in an emergency rate cut wasn't necessary. And it's because we're not dealing with a liquidity issue.
Yeah, exactly.
We're dealing with there's legitimately an economic problem, and liquidity isn't going to help it.
Yeah, exactly. Like all this money won't necessarily, I mean, like stimulus will carry us over, but like to get a loan for cheaper, that won't necessarily help.
A little bit, but it's not. You're not addressing the problem. You've literally walked. I've just broken my leg, and you're asking me what I want for dinner. It's like we have different issues right now.
Food
that
will
is
help.
Important, but I have other. I have more pressing issues.
Like
we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, it's like I'm hungry. I have a broken leg that I just broke. If I eat, like that'll take care of my hunger, but I might puke it up because I have a broken leg.
And also,
I get nauseous when I have a broken leg.
And also, if I need surgery, they tend to prefer if you've not eaten.
Yeah, exactly.
So the anesthesia can work a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that's that issue.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the real problem is we'd love to ask another former ECB president, right? But he's busy too. But Draghi's really busy right now.
Well, he's rated like one of the best, according to Paul Krugman, which I don't know how much you like Paul Krugman or not, but he's a Nobel laureate. He won the Nobel Peace Prize or some prize for economics. Something for economics, right?
Yeah, it's the Nobel Prize for economics.
Yes, he has said Mario Draghi is the best central bank president in modern times. I'll start by saying this. Tweet of the day goes out to someone that tweeted last week. I forget who it was. I'm too lazy to pull it up, but this was like one of the best tweets I've ever seen in my life. I tweeted something about, like, will the ECB lifting interest rates by 50 basis points actually solve the supply chain crisis that they have out there? And then the guy tweeted at me, there's no supply chain crisis if there's no demand.
I mean, That's true.
I mean, tell me that wasn't the tweet of the day. Like that was the tweet.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. It's like did you know you can? And this is I am now quoting. I forget who's.
It was such dark humor, but it's
hilarious. No. I'm about to. So I think this was David Mitchell, who's an English comedian. He was discussing COVID at one point. He just goes, "Well, did you know that dynamite is also a cure for COVID? It creates some different problems, but it deals with COVID very effectively."
Well, like basically what he's saying, and this is like really dark humor, which I love dark humor. And sorry if if it rubs you the wrong way, but basically he's saying like, there's no pandemic if there are no people.
Well, that's exactly what
it's like saying that. It's like
that's exactly what David Mitchell was saying. Is like, you know that if you blow someone up, COVID's not a problem.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
And I'll be honest, I laughed very hard at that. It was one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, that's dark and twisted. I love it.
Yeah.
But no,
I thought that was hilarious.
Well, but like I said, I'm sure Christine Lagarde would love to be calling Mario Draghi right now. But again, he's got his own problems. His Italian unity government, his Italian national unity government, it looks like it's collapsing. It looks like his premiership as the technocratic prime minister of Italy is.
And I'll start by saying this too, as we go into this Italian situation, is I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. It's just the timing of it is horrible.
Yeah.
With rampant inflation. I mean, like, it's not that this would ever be a good thing, but the timing of it makes it so much more dramatic because rampant inflation, food crisis, farmers' protest,
energy crisis.
I mean, a lot of things. Yeah. Ukraine going to war, right? So, which that was a very polarizing thing that happened for Italy for some reason. You know, how much support should we give Ukraine? That was a very polarizing thing in the parliament. But yeah, too bad Draghi can't help because he was apparently, according to Krugman, he was a great central bank president. Now he's the prime minister in Italy. I forget how long he's held that position for.
It's not long. It's only been a year and a half.
Yeah, because he was central bank president until 2019 or something like that. Like Christine Lagarde didn't take over from him. 2019, right? That's
right. He's been there since February of 2021 is when he took over.
Yeah, so he took some months off after serving at the ECB.
And then found himself trying to lead Europe's fourth largest economy through and out of COVID, because COVID obviously not over. Italy obviously had some, as we recall from 2020, had some very serious problems.
Yeah, they were one of the first countries in the EU or just in Europe to
they were hit very badly.
Yeah. So, what a sticky situation this is. I mean, so he resigned, or he tried to resign last Thursday or something like that?
He offered his resignation to the president of Italy last week, and the president said, look, just because one part of your coalition isn't being great, you're fine. You still have the faith of the Italian people. You can still run this government. You're still a legitimate prime minister. Go ahead and run it. And so then this week he decided, well, I need my coalition. I need this parliament to back me. I need this parliament to at least say, look, we agree that you have a right to lead.
I don't know why. So I don't know why he puts so much faith in what they're saying, but I know he started a coalition with them. But basically, I mean, this political party is it's called the Five Star Movement. It's an Italian political party that was founded in 2009 by a comedian.
What you'll notice in Europe is that is it a comedian who's fed up with politics tends to be how you get a new government or a pretty popular party going, or at least that's worked in Italy and Ukraine.
Yeah, and a little bit in the UK too. But like
Boris Johnson is not a comedian; he's just unintentionally hilarious.
I know. But yeah, I mean, so this comedian, I mean, he's very much a political comedian, but like he founded this Five Star Movement party in 2009 that really seems to not have any political identity. They're a little bit like they have a really strict immigration policy, but they're very left-wing socially and economically, and they're also very skeptical of the EU, which I think for a left-wing ideology, even in Europe, you're very pro-EU.
Yeah, I've looked at a little bit of what the Five Star Party stands for, and it seems to me like it's a bunch of people who agree on like two things. Yeah. But they disagree on how to do those two things. But they agree on the two things. They disagree on everything else, but they're like, well, as long as we agree on these two things, let's
start a coalition.
Yeah, like, we don't agree on everything, but there's more of us than everyone else.
Yeah, there's 20 things that we're indifferent on. There's two things that we agree on, and we don't agree on how to get to where we want to go.
And there's five things we all disagree on pretty harshly, and those things are all kind of different.
Yeah,
but we have in common is more than we don't.
Well, the weird thing is, so like, I mean, the weird thing is like this party is also divided at the moment, and a lot of it has to do with the invasion on Ukraine.
So Italy's, here's the real problem, and this is how it speaks to the economics, because the politics of this isn't necessarily, I mean, knowing which party is going to take over, and if Draghi's cabinet collapses, which it's almost certain to do now, then there will be a snap election. There has to be. And then it'll occur probably in September, but sometime this fall.
Right.
And what we'll see is the only groups that are really organized and kind of ready for this election, or that seem to be in a position to prosper from this, are the right wing groups in Italy.
Right.
Which,
but the thing is, like the 5 Star Movement, they're very much like all they do is cry anti-establishment, which is really ironic. Which is really ironic that they would form a coalition with Mario Draghi, who's very much he's
the establishment technocrat.
Yeah, he's the technocrat. So like
he's the insider expert. He is in the U.S. He is what the anti-establishment group of people would decry as an elite, as a government elite.
But the weird thing is, like, all the anti-establishment people went to. Apparently, there's a super right-wing party in, I don't know the name of the party, but there's a super like alt-right party in Italy that's also anti-establishment that the 5 Star Movement tried to start a coalition with. The 5 Star Movement has tried to start a coalition with every single party in the Italian parliament, which is just like, tell me you don't have any political identity without telling me you don't have any political identity.
Yeah, so the far right group is the Brothers of Italy Party, which is
okay, yeah. So and now like they're like one of the projected favorites now because they've been crying anti-establishment. Apparently, that's the thing to do now.
Well, the problem is being anti-establishment is a great way to get elected. Unfortunately, the problem is once you're elected, you are the establishment. And so sitting here trying to govern against the establishment, it's like, you can't do that.
Right. But it's also like,
you can't.
The thing is, like, if you're anti-establishment, like, okay, well then go in there and pull back on regulation. That's usually what you should do if you're anti-establishment. Is you go in there and you pull back on regulation.
Yeah.
But they haven't been doing that. That's not like.
Well, the problem.
I think some regulation is good, but like they've been.
You've seen. You haven't seen Life of Brian, have you?
Dude,
like, fully through.
We were seeing Life of Brian at the end.
I know.
At the end of the episode last week. Always look at the bright side of life, man.
Yes, we were. Oh no, it's because it's. You have, and some people I know haven't, but there's that one scene where you have the Judean People's Front and the People's Front of Judea, and they're all there, and they're just like, we're not the Judean People's Front, we're the People's Front of Judea. What do you believe in? We want the Romans to leave, except we want them to leave the sanitation, the roads,
the schools, the healthcare.
So you want them to leave everything, you just want them to go home. Yes. That's what this is.
Yeah, the Romans have done nothing for us, except for the roads. Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. The Romans have done
sanitation.
Except for the roads. Oh, and the sanitation. The Romans have done nothing but the roads and healthcare. Okay, aside from the healthcare, roads,
and the schools.
Yeah, it's like they went on. So
that's what's happened. That's the problem is when you're anti-establishment and then you find yourself the establishment and you're like, oh, I'm going to get rid of. No, actually, we like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of what the 5 Star Movement is like. But I don't know. It's very much a young political party, I think.
Yeah, it is. And once it develops an identity of what it does stand for.
If it does.
Okay, so that's a really good point. The big thing is you see so many groups now that they run for office on, I don't believe in that. Okay, but what do you believe in? Not that. No, what do you stand for?
Well, I don't stand for that. So it's like, what? No, you can't have an anti-stance. You have to have.
So what do you want? Not what don't you want? I'm not again. Now, if you want to become politically motivated by I don't like something, it's like, okay, well, what do you want?
What's the alternative?
Go for it. Yeah. You can't just be like, I'm going to repeal it. Well, what are you going to do?
What are you going to replace it with? So long story short, this is the 8th biggest economy in the world. 4th
largest in Europe. They have wildfires. They're about to have some fuel problems.
Europe is falling apart. I don't know how the markets have held up. And one more thing about the 5 Star Movement, just get the full picture of this party. They're kind of Russia empathetic.
They are and they
Some
aren't.
people say they're pro-Russia, but like since Ukraine, what has really the party has divided into two recently, which is kind of motivated, the ousting of Draghi. Was half of the party wanted to provide Ukrainian aid, like military aid, and then the other half did not. So there were two leaders in that party that kind of split off, and then like one guy took the party and then went to that brothers party or whatever I think you're talking about. That was part of what was going on leading up to Draghi's resignation.
You see this this kind of collapse there. it doesn't help that, I mean, it's July, so it's the middle of summer right now. So energy prices are very high if you're going to have the hottest summer on record and wildfires. But what was it the 5-star said? They wouldn't support. So Draghi went out with a cost of living support package.
That was
and the
it,
5-star
yes.
party fought him on it, voted against it because they said it wasn't environmentally friendly enough. And it's one of those things.
Well, it was two things. One, it wasn't environmentally friendly enough, which like it was like really that was a pretty small portion of it. I think.
Well, it's very much. It's like you haven't. But you've got a pill that cures lung cancer, and they're like, oh, but it doesn't do anything for my nails. So no, it's like hang on, we'll deal with that.
Right. So it was a cost of living support package. There's two things. One, they said that the cost of living support package wasn't generous enough, but then and then it also wasn't environmentally friendly enough. So there are two things that they wanted to turn it down on, and I think I don't know which one kind of spearheaded the lack of confidence in Draghi.
Well, I think it was just that he felt he wasn't getting the support he wanted from his coalition, and so he pressed them to come to a vote to do something. And a big chunk of them said they weren't going to go. And so then he said, okay, fine. Clearly, they don't want me. Clearly, I can't lead under these circumstances. So he said, I'm going to quit. Wow. President said, no, don't quit. They're just doing this.
I would too if I was the president.
Yeah, because you need the guy. Yeah. But he's sitting here going like, look, they're not playing ball. Like they're trying to take their ball and go home. So if that's what they want, then clearly I'll just leave. Everyone else can keep playing.
Yeah. Then this. Let's just say you don't have any confidence in Mario Draghi. Like, okay, well then who's his replacement? If I don't have any confidence in Jerome Powell, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, we could find someone better if we can't.
Yeah, you kind of want to line someone up. It's very much like
It's very much like it's very much like. I mean, I look at like NFL quarterbacks.
Let's bring it down to college football coaches.
Okay,
a lot of people talk about firing Scott Frost. Yeah. But who are you going to get?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and a lot of people don't like Derek Carr as a quarterback, right? Which I don't get. I think Derek Carr is great. Is he the best? No, but is he good? Yeah.
He's solid.
Okay, yeah, so trade him away. Okay, so once he's traded away, who's starting for the Raiders? Like,
we didn't think
probably
that
not
far
as
ahead.
good as Derek Carr. Well, so it's kind of like that. Like, okay, so the 5-star movement, you want to oust this guy. Who's going to replace him?
Yeah, what is your plan?
Who has his experience? Who has his expertise? And, I'm not like the biggest Draghi fan. I'm just saying, like, the guy's, like, just like I'm not the biggest Jerome Powell fan, but I'm not going to cry for his head, like, just because of this one thing.
And my thing is, I don't agree with Jay Powell on everything, and I think he's been late, and I think he's been slow on inflation. But as a whole, I don't know that anyone else out there would be faster, would have been stronger on it. I just don't think there's anyone out there that would be doing a better job. So it's like, well, okay, fine, he's not doing a perfect job. You're right. Who's going to do a better job? No one. Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's not do a worse job just because if you're angry at this guy for not doing a good enough job, you don't bring in a guy who's less good and expect better results.
Exactly. Less good and less experienced, most likely. So, I mean, I don't know what the 5-star movement is thinking. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish here. Hopefully they get it together and have some sort of political identity because, first of all, Europe looks like it's headed towards like becoming a third world country, which is really sad.
I don't think it'll be quite that bad.
I know, but it's just like if they keep up this direction, if they keep like it's gonna go there, right? Which I don't necessarily think it will.
They have some really serious economic problems already, and they can make it worse.
Yeah, but their population has been growing like crazy. Last like 5 years, not as much, but like the last like 25 years.
Yeah, no, Europe has gotten bigger.
Yeah, I mean it's been a pretty lax immigration policy out there. A lot of new like refugees and things like that. Mm-hmm. So like that's not good when there's a food shortage and an energy shortage. That's awful.
It's not a great economic outlook. Now they've got enough money and their currency because of they already have the infrastructure in place that when the energy issues are resolved, the lost output, the lost economic gain is never going to be gotten back. But they're in a much better position to be back where they are.
Yeah. And the thing is, France is going through their political instability too. I don't know what's going on. I don't know that story as well.
Well, France is always a little...
Yeah, apparently Emmanuel Macron is going through some sort of... I don't know. I think it has to do with what's going on with Ukraine. But I don't... Like I said, I don't really know that much, so I don't want to talk too much about it until I actually do know what the heck I'm talking about.
I think it's just a little more of that, maybe war weariness in the world, in the Western world at least. And I get it. But I don't know. It's just
like the world seems like it's like standing on like its last leg. Is China? Let's move over to the other side.
Well, it's not. And if we thought, let's put it this way: instability is always it's either a fantastic opportunity or it's horrifyingly dangerous. It's horrifyingly risky. So when you have instability of government, so Italy
and France,
you have, well, I think that's much more stable than I would historically have always.
I would still say it's like it's not very stable, but
they've got problems. They've got problems.
But correct, compared to Italy, it's not close.
But they have political instability. Now, political instability should make investors leery. Oh, yeah. What is this next government going to do? Is there going to be a solid government for a while that allows me to make a decision?
Yeah, it's so weird though. There isn't. Yeah, but it's so weird because like the FTSE and the DAX, I don't think. I mean, they were up this week, so I don't know. What was it priced in last week?
They closed slightly down today.
Okay,
it's one of those things where you're like,
okay. At one point the candle was green because if they closed slightly down, I'm sure the range was green at one point. So my bad. When I looked at it, it was probably green. But yeah, I mean. But whatever. I mean, maybe they see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's
entirely possible. And there's also probably some people who are looking at inflation rates and going, look, this is gonna.
Well, yeah. Where else am I gonna park my money?
What else am I gonna put it in? Because it's not gonna be cash.
Yeah, and I don't want to go deposit it at a bank and have it get frozen like Chinese banks.
Oh yeah. And so that's part two. So if you know political instability isn't great, but even worse than that would be when your personal property rights don't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a huge underpinning of modern economics is that when I build a building, I will continue to own that building. When I put money in a bank, it will remain my money,
and I can pull it out whenever I want.
And that's another huge one is that I have free access to my money.
Yeah, exactly. So that's property rights, though. Like you build your house or you stake out your piece of land, and it's your land, and you have the right to that land. You have the right to go farm the land. You have the right to build a business on the land. It's your land.
Absolutely.
But China doesn't really see it that way. Apparently, a lot of banks have frozen deposits. About $200 million US dollars worth of deposits have been frozen in Chinese banks, and there have been crazy bank protests. Oh my God, have you seen those videos?
I have. It's in three, and specifically it's in three banks. Yeah. It's three kind of smaller, more rural banks in China, and it's created some very serious problems because you've got a government policy of zero COVID.
Yeah. But okay, I'll say this too before we like actually delve into this topic. But like, I really think, and I think all signs point to this, that the Chinese government is behind us. That's just me, and I'll go on record saying that I've been skeptical of the Chinese government. So
yeah, that seems like that. I'll be honest, skeptical of the Chinese government is an exceptionally sustainable position.
Well, dude, tell that story. Well, tell that story that you told me. Like that's what. Since you told me that story, when you told me that story, I was like, okay, the Chinese government has to be behind.
Absolutely.
This.
So one of the banks in question is I'm gonna absolutely butcher this name, but
whatever.
The bank is called the Yuzhou Jinmin Sheng Village Bank.
I'll accept it. My last name is Wong, so I can accept it. I have the right to accept it. So
excellent.
My last name is Wong.
Some U.S. journalists, some American journalists were able to talk to or communicate with some customers of this bank, with some depositors of this bank, and one of the guys runs a construction firm. Put $1 million in that bank, and
$1 million US worth.
$1 million US dollars, and when asked why he used that bank, because he does not live in the rural area where that bank specifically is located. He lives a distance away, some distance from it. He said, look, he went online, he looked at a bunch of banks.
Attractive interest rates.
Well, he'd never heard of this one. It offered a very solid interest rate. And so he said, you know what? It's better than everyone else. Everything is online. I make all my payments online. I spend all my money online I don't actually need to go in there all that often to withdraw cash or to put cash in because everything's online. Yeah. And he also concluded Chinese banks are safe. There is no issue with Chinese banks.
Which that was his first mistake.
Absolutely right, for multiple reasons. And so in April, he logged in to do something for whatever reason, and it said the system is down.
No.
And then he tried again, I would imagine multiple times, and he got to the month of May, still down, and was unable to access his account. So he, in June,
I'd be pissed too,
decides to travel to the bank, knock on the door, and go, the fuck, guys?
What's going on?
Somebody
owes me an explanation.
In the immortal words of Stuart Gilligan Griffin, where's my money, man?
You got money to buy mustaches?
Absolutely. But now in China, on top of that, to travel anywhere. So like just to go into a building, to just leave a building.
Leave a building too? You need this?
Some certain buildings. But you have your phone, and on your phone you have an app, and on that app it pulls up a QR code that you scan when you want to enter or leave a building. Or go places. And it's to tell you, it goes either green when you do not have COVID and have not been exposed to COVID or at least been inoculated. And the red says, actually, no, you've been exposed to COVID, or we think you're COVID positive. So you do whatever you were about to do.
Yeah, which that alone is really sketchy because it's like, okay, every time you go into a building, you scan this thing. Now people know where you are. Like, can you imagine if you had to do that? Like, if you went to a bar, I don't want to have to scan something.
So these guys, they go to a train station. They get on the trains. They scan and get on the train, and it's green. They're good to go. They get to the city that the bank is headquartered in. The bank has a location in, and they get off the train and they go to scan it to leave. And he and his wife, who was going with him, had red coats. They were detained then by Chinese authorities, by Chinese police.
Exactly, which is kind of weird because it's, well,
it is the People's Republic, Aaron.
It's the People's Republic of China. Definitely sounds like it belongs to the people to me.
Absolutely. So he during this detention, in the next hour of being detained, according to him, 8 people are brought in
for the same reasons, right? Or similar reasons.
Are detained for similar red tests, red QR code, and they get to talking because what else do you have to do in detention?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
When you're all interviewed,
so on this awful People's Republic version of Breakfast Club, they all discover that none of them live in this town, in this city. They're all from out of town, and that every single one of them is a depositor at that bank.
I love the Breakfast Club reference there. That was great.
Was traveling there that morning to discuss with the bank why they hadn't had access to their money in 3 months.
Wow. Yeah. So at the end, when they write that letter, that ended up becoming published in that newspaper article that you're reading. Is that what you're reading?
This is an interview. This is not. This is actually an interview where
I'm just saying, like,
to them.
Well, I mean, like at the end of Breakfast Club,
it's definitely it's not so much the letter as the voiceover of
the kid
saying the letter he wrote.
You've judged the iconic. Yes.
The iconic Breakfast Club letter.
Yes. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a great movie. I love Breakfast Club. But but $200 million in banks that these people now say is a fraud, or believe is a fraud. They don't. Yeah. But this has caused. But it sounds like tell me that doesn't sound like the Chinese government is behind it.
I mean, certainly that's attention. It sounds to me like the Chinese government decided it was going to prevent them from getting into the bank to talk about it. Well, because I think really every single one of them is a depositor.
So when
that seems suspicious.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, when the news originally broke, it was, well, China shut down the economy. These banks were giving out loans and they couldn't pay the loans back. Or these banks were giving out loans to businesses that couldn't pay the loans back to the bank, which meant the people that deposited money at the bank, they can't get their money back.
Yeah,
that was the original story.
Absolutely.
And then testimonies like this start coming out. Right, it's a pretty revealing.
Well, it reveals the pretty severe weakness of Chinese banking. Period. But the second, so this has led to. I mean, this is just flat out say this has led to runs on small Chinese banks. People don't trust their banks. People aren't trusting banks, so they're pulling their money out. And I don't blame them.
I don't either. Is it? I mean, I don't know. Is this the implosion of CCP? I don't know
about that. That might be a little.
I mean,
honestly, it may come, but I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, but the other thing is
this. So the problem, if I can just say this with the Chinese banking, is that it has no FDIC. It has no FDIC at all.
But they do have something similar, but it's very sketchy. What was that? Like when the
So they instead of the FDIC, Chinese banks just have the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, which as that backstop for Chinese banks determines if and when
and
who it will insure and protect or protect. And so the thing is, it's not going to protect all deposits. It's not going to protect all banks. It's not going to insure all banks. It's not going to backstop everything. So it's one of those things where it's like, wow. Yeah. So whenever the government decides it's gonna help failing banks, it helps them. And whenever it decides, they fail and drag us down with it, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you and I deposit money at a bank, let's say you and I open up a Bank of America account and we deposit money at Bank of America, and so do millions of other people because it's a giant bank, and Bank of America goes under for some reason. The government, the FDIC, will turn around and say, okay, anything 200,000, 250,000 or whatever, I forget the number. I think it's 250,000.
We'll give you back your money. Yeah, $250,000 dollar for dollar.
Dollar for dollar, we'll give you back your money. The rest of it is kind of best efforts, maybe.
You can get up to certain amounts. You can get paid fractions on that. So 10 cents, quarter, 10 cents.
Yeah.
But you're guaranteed.
Yeah, but if the government went up to me and said, oh, you don't get it because we just don't like you. Like, that's not cool. But the CCP can do that. Whereas the US government, they can't do that. Everybody with 250 grand gets it back. Or everybody up to 250 grand gets it back.
Every dollar up to $250,000. In a US consumer bank.
Yeah.
Retail. Yeah. In a retail bank. That's not an investment bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get it back.
$250,000. And here's the thing is it's not even per person. It's per person per bank.
Yeah. So if you have multiple bank accounts, or even if you have like multiple accounts at the bank. So if you have your own account, you have a joint account, like that's 2 accounts there, I think, with up to 250 grand. I'm pretty sure. I'm not dead certain on that one, but I'm like 98% certain on that one.
It's per depositor, per insured bank in each account category.
Yeah, but it has to be like titled, right? So if it's a joint account, it's not like titled to your individual account.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
No, yes. So I'm saying if you could do if you have a joint account,
it's like if you and Erica had a joint account, and then you had an account and she had an account, that's 3. That's 750,000.
And if that's all checking, now if we have the same but savings, that's 3 more.
Oh, so that's $1.5 million that's insured.
So you can get you can get there.
Yeah, but if you're in China, they can go to you and be like, hey, you have $1.5 million here that we just don't feel like insuring.
They could literally look at me and say, there's actually too many E's in your name.
Yeah.
So no. And I'd be like, there's 1 E in my name. And they go,
that's a lot. Yeah.
What do we say? Well, what about Kevin, who spells his name Kevin? Oh, well, he has the 2 E's. So they actually cancel each other. So he's going to get his money back.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah. You didn't realize that? That's how we're doing this. They could on a whim. That's how they, and that's how their banks are insured and backstopped on the whim of government.
Yeah. So that makes me feel like that this was provoked by the Chinese government. Maybe it was. And on top of that, the military of China has sent in tanks to protect the banks.
Oh yeah, no.
So tell me that doesn't scream.
Let's put it this way: whenever the people of China get upset about something, I mean, let's be honest. If I know anything, it's this: the Chinese Communist Party loves to send tanks. They really do.
Yeah, nothing happened in Tiananmen Square.
If you Google Tiananmen Square anywhere else in the world, you will know why. You will know that they like to send tanks. In China, Tiananmen Square, nothing ever happened. I don't know why you're even
literally
don't Google it.
Yeah, literally nothing happened there.
If you're in China, don't Google that. You'll end up on a list, and the next time you want to go to the bank, you're going to end up with a red QR code. And you're going to end up detained with everyone else who Googled Tiananmen Square that weekend. I mean, it's funny in that same way that like dynamite cures COVID. It's really not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can laugh or cry.
Yeah.
So they've sent tanks to protect the banks, which I'll just call this Tiananmen Part 2 Deposit Boogaloo. And I mean, let's put it this way: when you're willing to send tanks out instead of just getting people $200 million back, that really makes me wonder what you're.
$200 million is a drop and a half.
It's going to be more expensive to send the tanks. So they just pay the money.
It's a drop and a half for them.
I mean, and here's the real problem: is if the small rural banks are if they're in that bad a shape that they have to freeze accounts, and that's the thing is they didn't just say they're freezing accounts; they just locked people out and didn't say anything.
Yeah, like they issued no statement, but apparently they're unfreezing. They're going to release the frozen bank funds. Apparently they are. I don't know.
Well, the next problem really with Chinese banking or with the Chinese economy as a whole, but specifically out of the banking sector, is that a lot of their large property developers have stopped developing property.
Oh yeah,
right. So Evergrande, remember those guys? Yeah, they've stopped. Like they haven't continued to build. They have not continued on any of the projects. And so people in China who have mortgages with these companies to build the apartment, despite the fact that it'll never be finished until they sell it later to someone else, blah, blah, blah. Right? Ignore all that. These people have now decided, you know what? If they're not going to finish my building, I'm not going to pay my mortgage.
So, I mean, was this kind of a way for the Chinese Communist Party to kind of backstop that? They take deposits, they freeze it. It provides a little bit of liquidity for the mortgage crisis that they have going on, the real estate crisis they have going on.
So apparently
it's kind of like a swap without a swap.
Yeah, I don't know about a swap. I wouldn't say that. I know most people who look at it.
It's like a kind of like it, but no, it's actually nothing like it. But yeah, I hear you.
So the real problem is, and looking at it from kind of like a risk management standpoint, people not paying their mortgages to the banks right now, at least in China, isn't enough to really damage the banks. They'll be fine with their mechanisms in place. Yeah, from a is this going to really destroy their assets? No, they'll probably be okay.
Wow.
But the real issue is this: people don't trust the banks. And when people don't trust the banks,
what I want to know is, did they trust the banks 5 years ago?
Yeah,
right.
I think they did.
Okay,
I think
good.
People did.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I think maybe China's heading it seems like there's like this uprising across the world with Europe and with China and Sri Lanka. It seems like it's just like this uprising across the world against.
It's very different in every place, because in Sri Lanka you've got it's an uprising against the government because about mismanagement. It seems like it's just people have gone like, okay, you guys have run this into the ground, and here's the issue, we let you.
Well, yeah, but it seems like it's all. No, I don't know. I don't know if you want to call it like an uprising against globalism or like just like this anti-establishment thing. That is really ironic, but it's still like the root of it is anti-establishment. But there's no, but the end game is so unclear still. Right?
Yeah, but they don't necessarily elucidate on what comes next. They're angry. They are angry at what is. And here's the thing: if you're the government in this position, you really have two options. You can either placate the people by attempting to give them more of what they've said they want, or you can resign.
Well, there are some parties that do have an end game. Like I think the Dutch farmers or the European farmers, they have an end game. It's repeal this thing that we have to do. Yeah, right? Repeal that, and then we're good.
And see, the real issue is if you look at the Dutch farmers, they probably have a very valid point.
Yeah. So do the Chinese. They have a valid point too.
Valid point. Yeah. That's my money. But the Dutch farmers, the Netherlands does produce substantially more of the problematic gases than anywhere else in Europe, but they also have substantially less land, right? So the idea that if you remove that production to other countries, you're probably it's not gonna have that net beneficial environmental impact that you think.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like the efficiency that they can farm at is pretty impressive. And I think, well, why is it impressive? Because they do this as well, right? So, I don't really know that much about the law in place. All I know is that a lot of it has to do with the environmental regulations posed by the EU. There's an end game there, and I'm pretty sure there's an end game in China. But
the end game in China, if I was, I have to imagine the end game for these people is we want our money.
Yeah, the weird thing is I don't know. Maybe I said that kind of weird initially, but like it just seems like there's an uprising against globalism across the world. Whereas like in the U.S., like the biggest thing that I saw in the U.S. this last couple of weeks, aside from earnings, was single stock ETFs. Right? That's wow. What compared to
that's a weird thing.
Yeah, and mortgage demands have dropped.
Absolutely.
Like single stock ETFs, in case you're just wondering what it is, it's basically you buy one security and it just triple leverages you into whatever the underlying is. It's what it sounds like, a single stock ETF, right? There's like 8 different companies with single stock ETFs now. I think it's like PayPal, Tesla, Nvidia, Nike, I forget what else, but Pfizer, I think is also one of them. But you get the point. You can go single stock ETFs. You can buy a security that triple leverages you increases your exposure by 3 times into a single security, and you can also go inverse. There's inverse ETFs too.
Yeah.
So
go the opposite direction of it.
So you can
really what I want to say is all this strikes me as it's from your perspective a much less risky form of options in that you aren't left holding the bag on a potential major loss.
Yeah, because there's no expiration date. You can buy it and hold it forever. But the weird thing about so anybody knows like triple leverage ETFs or like inverse ETFs
are very sensitive to small changes, hence the triple leverage.
Yeah,
right?
But they're also like, think about how many times they do a reverse split or reorganize, right? And a lot of brokerage firms charge reorganization fees. So if you hold these for too long, I mean, you could get stuck with one of those reorganization fees. And the management fees have to be absurd. I can't imagine the management fees for these single stock ETFs, especially the short ETFs, like the inverse ETFs. There's no way the management fees are cheap. I don't know. I haven't looked it up, but like, no way. The guy literally came out and said, the guy that started this came out and said, like, this is not for the faint of heart. These aren't securities that are meant to be held long term.
No,
was what he said word for word.
And that makes sense because it's something that like they're going to wildly fluctuate.
Oh yeah,
which it's just a different casino game.
Yeah, and then on top of that, in the U.S., is just mortgage demand. That's the only thing I saw. I mean, maybe I missed stuff, but those are like the big things that I saw. Was of course Tesla, Elon Musk backing out. I don't want to go too deep into this because we've already talked forever about other things, but
the big one I saw is so mortgage rates are down at 22-year new mortgages.
Mortgage demand
is at 22-year lows, so they're down back to 2000 levels. And I decided to sit down, pull some data together, and go, okay, let's ignore some things and just kind of compare what buying a house would have cost me exactly 1 year ago versus in July of 2021 to buy that same house for the same flat rate dollar value today.
And it's very much the average house, right, in the US. It's very scary.
So the first thing is that the average house in 2022 is now $507,800. Or that was the median house, so $500,000. Just call it that. Mm-hmm. Which means that if last year at the 2.88 fixed 30-year rate average that I got from Federal Reserve was 2.88% this time last year, which means that to borrow that $500,000 to buy the house, it would have cost me per month, it would have cost me $2,075.80. And then to say this, I will pay a grand total of $247,287.61 in interest to borrow that $500,000. So roughly 50%. If I were to borrow that same dollar amount today to buy that same house, which is only $500,000, the house is not
it's the average house,
price, or a house, or this is another house.
Today is the average house, but like the $500,000 house a year ago was slightly better than average. Yeah.
I really reached for that house last year. This year it's the average house. This year it's a different house, it's a less good house, but it's the same dollar amount. To borrow that $500,000 this year, in this July, it will cost me $2,842.08 per month. This is just the mortgage. And the total interest I will pay to borrow $500,000 is $523,149.83. So I will pay more in interest than I borrow.
What'd you say?
The total interest I will pay is $523,000.
Wait, I've got $531,000 on my thing, but
I changed it just to 500,000. So if I go 508,700, then 532.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Or 507. It was 507,800, wasn't it?
There we go.
531,311.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, that's what I got. But then I got to put the average figure in there into your spreadsheet that you created.
So here's and I have some really fun graphs, and maybe I'll post this into the Discord so you can take a peek at it. But if you want to know what that really looks like, what it means is this. So you never pay more interest than you do in your first payment. After that, you start to pay slightly more of the principal back and slightly less of the interest. Last year, it would have taken 6 years. They would have paid more on interest than on the principal for 6 years exactly. And in January of year 7, that first payment of year 7, you're paying more against the principal than you are against the interest.
Yeah.
Right? If you were doing this year, it takes 17 and a half years before you start to pay more on the principal than on the interest. So it'll be in July of year 17, actually July of year 18. Well, year 17 because you start in year 0. But in the 17th year, you'll be halfway through the 17th year before you pay more against the principal of the debt than you do against the interest. You'll pay more in interest than you borrow.
Yeah, this is just a 30-year mortgage, but it's also like it's assuming that you're taking on $500,000 debt.
Absolutely,
right?
This assumes you are borrowing 100% of it. That you're getting the exact average interest rate.
Yeah. So if so if you put a 20%, let's say you put down 100,000. 20% down, right, on a $500,000 house, it's still pretty much the same, actually.
No. You are still at the new interest rate going to be paying more in interest than you are.
Actually, more than double, right? If you put 10% down,
you will pay more than double now what you would have paid a year ago, and you will pay more to borrow your money now than you're actually borrowing.
Yeah, exactly. Over 30 years.
Yeah.
So, gosh, that's insane. And at one point, I don't know, the housing market just seems like it's in shambles right now, but honestly, like housing market in shambles compared to what the EU is going through is just.
I mean, the thing is this: people aren't wanting to buy. People don't want to buy houses because they're too expensive. Borrowing that much money is insane. And at the same time, people aren't necessarily wanting to. People don't want to put their house up because they don't know where they'll go because they don't know where they'll buy. People who are buying, so one, they don't want to borrow the amount of money they have to borrow to buy a house, and second, a lot of people would be sitting here. If you're smart, you sit down, you look at how much you're going to be paying in the mortgage. You'll be like, well, I will never sell my house for more than I bought it for. So they'll view it as a lost proposition. Now, I actually went a little further and I decided to do some really fast income stuff to determine. So there's that basic rule of you should earn 3 times more than your housing.
Yeah, 3.5 times rent or whatever, 3 times rent or whatever it is.
So I said mortgage rent, it'll be the same thing, right? You want to have 3 times that. So last year, 2021, your $2,075.80 mortgage payment, right? You'd really only need to make $62.27 a month, or annually that comes out to you have to make $75,000 a year. Now, here's the real problem: hourly income. That means you'd have had to make $37.36, which is more than people were making last year.
Right.
This year, your $2,842 payment, you now need to make $8,500 a month, or $102,000.
Yeah.
Which hourly is $51.16.
Yeah. Well, that's why there's those articles where you see half the people making $250,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck.
If people making that much money are living paycheck to paycheck,
one of the reasons why probably
the people who aren't making that much money are absolutely in a bad place, and so that's why.
Yeah. Well, that's why debt levels are insanely high right now.
Credit card debt
is super high.
And to touch on kind of the retail conversation we've been having has been happening in our Discord and that people have looked at. retail numbers are solid right now. People are buying right now.
But
speaking of those retail numbers, kind of just retail in general, if you go to drunkenomics.myspreadshop.com,
there's a pretty cool retail store there.
There's a retail shop there, and you can find some pretty sweet Drunkenomics swag where you too.
I'm just saying the retail sentiment could be weak, but it better not be weak here because I just want you all to look good. This is how you do it.
Now, I will warn you that if you are in China and you are wearing this, your QR code will turn red. I absolutely guarantee. Unfortunately, your QR code will turn red if you have anything Drunkenomics related.
I don't even know if our stuff ships to China.
Well, that's a good question. But I will say is this: if it wasn't going to turn red before now, it will turn red after this.
After this gets dropped. But you can find it all at drunkenomics.myspreadshop.com. That's drunkenomics.myspreadshop.com. Wow, I think it's because I'm less gracious this week. I could just rattle that off.
You're back in your republic, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, get yourself a hoodie, tank top, whatever it is. I did see someone got a tank top today, so I'm like, dude, nice man. Sun's out, guns out.
You get a coffee mug now. You don't have to put coffee in.
You can put your rum and coke in there, right?
Let's say that.
So
do what you got to do.
And then from there, if you have too much merch, you have too many hoodies, and not enough girlfriends to steal them all from.
Have them steal from you?
Have them steal from you. Yes.
So good for you on either having a stable relationship or more likely just keeping that hoodie under lock and key.
Yeah, exactly.
And absolutely safe.
Yep. But if that's not something you're going through, you can also find us on Patreon, patrun.com/drunkenomics, DRUNKENOMICS. I spelled it twice already, but whatever.
And you nailed it each time. So
thank you, man. It's just nice being back in this less gracious format. It's weird.
I know.
Change up is.
I'll be honest, being back in the gracious state of things, I think I just did need that week off.
Yeah, I think so.
I needed that week off. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I think we both feel a little bit refreshed from the one change up we had. But yeah, find us on LinkedIn if you want, if you haven't already.
I got someone
whatever
this week or linked this week, and I don't know if that was. I assume it was related to this.
Yeah, hopefully it is. But I mean, if you're gonna do it, just let me know that you listened to the episode and hey, whatever. I mean, just so I'm not like, who is this person? But yeah, thank you so much. I love drinking with you guys. In the meantime, I hope you guys play chestnut checkers. What else do we have to say? Don't brag, just say. It only gets worse.
Yeah, that's stuff.
Forget all our little sayings.
Don't let the dead cat hit you.
Don't let the dead cat bounce on you.
Don't let the dead cat bounce on you.
And most importantly,
stay drunkenomical, guys.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.